Hello everyone, welcome back to Sailors Creek Battlefield, Historical State Park. This is the site of the last major fight of the war in Virginia. It takes place on April 6, 1865, just 3 days before the surrender at Appomattox. My name is Ranger Lee Wilcox, and today we have a program that's entitled Famous Steeds of the Civil War. Now this is in reference to the horses that belong to the major characters of the war who became famous and who we still talk about in American history. And so likewise, the horses that they owned became famous. Now these are horses that had bold, strong-sounding names, sometimes colorful, comical-sounding names, to just plain, simple names. But like most animals and their names, there's generally a good story that goes along with it. So let's get started right at the top with perhaps the most popular horse to emerge from the war, one that even amongst casual observers is heard of, and that is Robert E. Lee's horse named Traveler. Now, Traveler, pictured here with Robert E. Lee, appears to be a white-colored horse, but in reality, he is gray in color. General Lee acquires him early on in 1861, and they remained devoted to one another throughout the entire war, so much so that they die within months of each other. Robert E. Lee passes away in October of 1870, and after a brief illness, a few months later, Traveler passes away. But during the war, these two are inseparable, can be seen everywhere. Traveler being General Lee's primary but also favorite horse. Now with these senior commanders, they also had backup horses. Every now and then Traveler would need a day off, and when those occasions arose, Robert E. Lee had other horses he could call upon for service. And in this instance, he had one named Lucy Long. He also had one named Ajax, and he had a third one that was named the Brown Roan. Next up is Ulysses S. Grant and his favorite horse named Cincinnati. This is a picture of both of them together, and like Lee and Traveler, Grant and Cincinnati were inseparable, devoted to one another throughout the war, and was Grant's favorite. Now, just like General Lee and like Traveler, when Cincinnati needed a day off, Grant had backup horses he could call upon. And those were Rondi. He had another one named Kangaroo. Makes you wonder about the personality of that horse. He also had one named Jeff Davis. So it goes to show just how much of a healthy sense of humor that General Grant had. Then we have Stonewall Jackson and his favorite horse that he acquired early on in the war named Little Sorrel. Now, Little Sorrel was a young horse. General Jackson was riding Little Sorrel when he suffered his mortal wounds during the Battle of Chancellorsville in 1863. And so even though Jackson does not survive the war, Little Sorrel does and lives to a ripe old age of 36. Then we have William Tecumseh Sherman and his favorite horse named Duke. Now this is a picture of them two together on the outskirts of Atlanta during the Atlanta campaign. And just like the other commanders, whenever Duke needed a rest, Sherman had some backup horses. One was named Dolly. He had another one that was named Sam. Then we have General James Longstreet, and this is his horse known as Fly by Night, and that's a very good sounding name for a horse. It was also a gift given to General Longstreet by General Lee. Next up is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, the hero of Little Round Top at the Battle of Gettysburg. Now before the Civil War, Chamberlain was a college professor, and one of the subjects he taught was history. So that might have something to do with the name that he came up for with his horse, which was Charlemagne. Then we have Jeb Stewart, the bold cavalier, and his favorite horse, which was named General. Now, with the cavalry service, the number of horses that were owned by the cavalry soldiers, or even just simply ridden by the soldiers, were endless. It was the nature of that branch of service. The men and the horses charging into battle, which the horses were sometimes referred to as chargers. Casualties were high on as far as the riders and the horses themselves, and so they went through quite a bit of them. The list is too long for us to go into detail here just for Jeb Stewart, but we selected a few to talk about, and so the first one being his favorite, which was General. General was also the horse that Stewart was riding when he suffered his mortal wounds late in the war at Yellow Tavern. Now, other horses attributed to Jeb Stewart were Virginia. He had another one named My Maryland, sometimes just shortened to Maryland, And that was a horse that was given to him as a gift by the Maryland volunteers that served under his command. He also had a horse named Skylark. That's a great name for a horse, as well as the other one known as High Flyer. He also had just a simple horse named George. Next up is another famous cavalry commander. This is Philip Sheridan from the Federal Army, and his horse, his favorite horse, known as Renzi. Great name for a horse, good strong sounding name, Renzi. And this is an image of them two together. Now, late in the war, as Sheridan's stock starts to rise, he starts to get a very good reputation as being successful on the field. Towards the end, there's a major battle up in northern Virginia, at the corner where Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland all come together. And the victory was of such magnitude that Sheridan decides that he's going to change the name of his horse to the name of the town where the victory was secured. And so Renzi ends up becoming Winchester. And unfortunately, in just my personal opinion, that strong, wonderful name Renzi is lost forever, and he goes by Winchester for the rest of his life. Next up is Nathan Bedford Forrest, whose own nickname is the Wizard of the Saddle, and his favorite horse, which was known as Roderick. Then we have President Davis, Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederate States of America, and his horse, Blackjack. Then we have Patrick Cleburne. His horse was known as Red Pepper. Also makes you wonder about the personality of this horse, named Red Pepper. Next up is General John Reynolds of the Federal Army, famous commander, and his favorite horse that was known as Fancy. Then we have John Sedgwick. His nickname was Uncle John by his comrades on the Federal Army side. So John Sedgwick, but he had a horse that was his favorite named Handsome Joe. That's a wonderful name for a horse, Handsome Joe. And then how can we not have a program on horses without mentioning this character, George Armstrong Custer. Now, just like the other cavalry commanders, Custer either owned or rode numerous horses throughout the war, many of them being casualties. But he had some very good select few that were attributed to him. I could have picked any one of dozens that were on the list, but one that stood out that I thought fit his personality, that's Custer's personality perfectly, was this horse, who was known as Don Juan. So this brings us to the end of the program today on famous steeds of the Civil War. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was a fun one to put together. I have a challenge for you for home. So for those of you, especially the horse lovers out there, picture yourself, if you were in the Civil War, would you own a horse? Would you be in the cavalry service, or would you be a commanding officer that happened to own a horse? Would you have more than one horse? What kind of horse would it be? Would it be a brown one, a white one, a black one, a gray one, a tan one? Would it have a different colored mane than the rest of its body? Would it be a young horse, an old horse? And what would its name be? What would the names be if you had multiple horses to choose from? And come up with a backstory too. You know, whether it's something funny or a noble gesture from someone, or something that was heroic in nature. So have fun with it. Again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this program. We have some more planned for you, as well as the rangers from the other state parks here in Virginia. The programs continue. Let us know what you think, if we should continue to do this, if you're enjoying them. So until next time, again, thank you, and have a good day.